Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Natasha. How are you?
I am doing well. I think we were just having a little discussion about our I don't know if they were frantic mornings, but just morning.
Yes,
But I'm doing
yes.
good. I have biscuits, so what could be going wrong? How are you doing?
All is well. I just got home, jumped on because I definitely didn't want to miss today. And hear all of your wisdom on CRMs and the growth stage of email list building. So I'm really, really excited about today. I feel like this week is really going to forte your expertise and knowledge. I have my pencil, my notepad right here to take notes. So let's just go over a quick review of what we've talked about the last 3 weeks. I'm really sad that today is our last session, if you will, of the tricks and traps of email list building. So the first week, we really talked about why email lists are a great asset for your business. You own it. You don't have to worry about trying to figure out an algorithm. There's a huge return on investment for an email list. It's like $42 for every dollar spent. An email list is a very great way to develop a relationship with your audience, as it is a direct communication channel to each person that opens the email up. They allow for increased customer engagement each email that you send. Um, you own your list. I think I talked about that at the beginning. It's something that you own so you don't lose it if a platform goes away or if you're banned. And there are always easy places and ways that you can begin building and collecting your email list. And one thing we talked about, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, one thing that you should always think about when you're building your list is the quality of your email list instead of just the quantity of having a large number of subscribers, and emails that people don't open because you haven't really attracted your target audience. So that's what we've talked about the past few weeks. You can go back onto, I think, my profile or Natasha's Facebook page and catch up on those last few weeks. Um, so this week we're talking about growth and using your email list for growth. So I just have a few things to say, and then I'm going to turn it over to Natasha so that we can hear all about systems and things of that nature from her. My driving point when building an email list is always using it to develop relationships. And if you follow me on LinkedIn or on any of my social media, or if we've had the opportunity to have a coffee chat, you know that I'm very driven as far as relationship building. So that is my absolute favorite thing about having an email list and using that email list to really nurture your relationship with your audience and to get them to really know who you are, know your business, and things of that nature. So, what I love most about having my email list and really using it to personalize the emails to my audience's interests is segmentation. And essentially, segmentation is dividing your email list into groups or categories based on characteristics of your audience. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, so yes, segmentation is what I love most about an email list because you can divide it based on locations. So for example, if I were hosting an event here in Dallas, I could segment my list based on location so that I could send information about the event or an invitation to people that it's relevant to, people that are in or around Dallas, instead of sending an email to some of my customers that live in Germany or France. And there's also a way. One, I know if you are a shopper like I am, occasionally you might get an email from a company that you shop from that says, "We miss you." If you haven't been in a while or shopped for a while, you can use your email list to target behavior of the people on your email list. You can use it to kind of nudge them along in the relationship, and maybe encourage them to buy by sending special offers or invite them to a coffee chat if it's someone that you segmented as, someone that you haven't met personally. So segmentation is something that I will encourage you to look into as you're building your email list, because it really, really puts the personal touch into your messages to your audience, because you were able to personalize how you interact with your audience. So I've really, really enjoyed sharing my knowledge with all of you the last few weeks. And if you need anyone to create an email strategy with, or if you want to chat about segmentation or relationship development or come up with an email strategy, I would love to talk to you. Or even if you just want to chat, I'm definitely a talker. You can definitely find my virtual coffee chat link on my profile, and I'd love to chat with you. So now I am going to turn it over to Natasha so we can hear everything that she says about growth. And all that she's about to share with you is the reason why I wanted her to be one of my business besties. So I'm going to mute myself. Natasha, I have my notepad and my pen, and I'm looking forward to hearing everything that you have to say about systems and email list building today.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I think definitely, hopefully this is still a conversation. So happy to have you unmuted and popping in. So I don't want it to be fully one-sided. But I loved what you were saying earlier, just bringing up the point from our previous conversation about the $42 to every dollar spent, because that does come up a lot when I'm like telling people about emails and why they should be doing it. And what I think is really important about that number is if you go read the rest of the data, it basically says you're not getting to that number unless you're sending, and I don't quote me on this part, but it's something, a couple emails a week, I believe, or something like that. So often people will get started and they're doing a newsletter, and maybe they get the newsletter down to like once a week. So great, I have this once a week newsletter. I'm ready for that ROI. And the thing is, like, that's not how it's going to come. And so that was why I was so excited to do this 4th week about growth and about the next steps, because these are the things that are going to get you to that ROI. Like we talked about starting a newsletter, we talked about the basics before, and that's great to get you started. But when you want to see those numbers, that's when you have to do all these other things that we're talking about. So I'm just really excited about that. And so I would say things I usually focus on are, when it comes to growth in general for your emails, are growth of your list, growth of your content, and growth of your tech. And so those are kind of like the 3 areas that I wanted to touch on. So I think starting with maybe, I was pretty bounce around because you talk about content, and I do want to talk about that in segmentation, but I think I'll talk about growth of the list first, and just how, we talk about, when we've said it already, that the number and having a big number list is not like your biggest goal. However, you do want steady growth of your list. And as long as you're doing it in the ways that we've talked about in previous weeks, like actually reaching out to your ideal people, making sure everyone wants to be on your list, having consistent content and consistent communication with them, then as that list builds and that number grows, that's now not so much a vanity metric, but an actual great metric, because you're calling in your people. So yeah, I think when we talk about list growth, that's a big one. And then I would say too, in terms of content that we talked a little bit about when you were saying segmentation and how important that is, I think it's ActiveCampaign's tagline that they often use the right message at the right time to the right person. And that's how they encapsulate their vision for emails. And I do think that's exactly right. And so when we talk about segmentation and why it's useful, it's because you're getting the right message to the right person at the right time. And what does that mean? Well, the right message, like you talked about, are you telling the right people that would be interested in this event about the event? Are you segmenting correctly by the person? And then are you sending it at the right time? So using automation and using all these pieces to come in and say, oh, they're going to want X amount of time before the event to prepare. Or maybe it's an event somewhere else and you want people to come from all over. It's like, okay, well, they're going to need months in advance to plan their travel. So really thinking about this concept of time and not just dropping something on someone and being like, I don't know, it's now a good time to like have you make this purchase or make this commitment. So yeah, really getting into segmentation and using that to your advantage. And again, then going into tech. And so what we talked about in previous weeks was get started with what you can. So if that is a free version of something, a simple version of something. If that works for your needs in the next year or so, great. But more than likely, to achieve any of these things, to get significant automations in place, to really be able to do some of these more sophisticated pieces, you're going to need a better piece of tech, or start off with a good piece of tech. So it's really going in and finding like what CRM can do these more advanced things for you when it comes to automatically sending out things so that you're reaching the right person at the right time with the right message.
So, one thing that I wanted to say, another reason why I'm really big on segmentation, because like segmentation is my thing this week. I don't ever want my audience or my clients or customers to feel like once they've made a purchase from me, or done a session with me, then that's like, that's it, thank you, goodbye. I want to continue nurturing and developing that relationship, but I don't like sending just generic information to everyone. I really want the information to apply, like you're saying, the right message to the right person. I really want them to feel that I am developing a relationship with each and every one of them. And that's what I want everyone to go away with as the first thought about segmentation. Like, yes, nurturing and developing and building that like trust relationship is important. And I can do that through email, but I can really hone in on that through segmentation. So, Natasha, I have a question for you. I'm sorry, it's not a scripted question, but could you talk about ways that we could use our CRM and segmentation in combination together to really create efficiency in our businesses? Is there a way to do that? And how do I know when I need a CRM? Like, I'm a brand new business owner. Do I need to invest in a CRM before I have clients, or do I need to wait until I have 10 or 15 clients? Or could you talk a little bit about that today as well?
Yeah, so I think there's like two different questions there. So when to invest in one, I'll start there. And I would say if you have the resources, so whether that be the actual money or time investment to set it up, I would start with a CRM as soon as possible. However, it's not necessary. So it's not something where it's like, if that's putting you out or if that's distracting you from actual revenue building needs in your business, don't do it. But if the resources, the time, and the money are there, I do think getting started sooner rather than later, so that as you're building with not just clients, but networking, new contacts, building that list, whatever it might be, you have somewhere to put them right away instead of later maybe having these pieces all over the place and then trying to get them into one spot. Like, it's a lot of work to do down the line if you can build it from the beginning the correct way. So I'd say sooner rather than later, because there really are so many inexpensive options. A lot of them, even like the bigger ones, will let you start off on a much cheaper plan when you have less contacts in there. So I would say it's really not that out of reach to just go ahead and get started with something so you have everything in one place. If at the end of the day that's just not feasible for whatever reason, I would say at least keep track of everyone in one place, like a Google Sheets or something like that, and some pertinent information, so that at some point maybe you can request that they opt in down the line. Then, as far as your point to how to make your automation and your CRMs work, I think that's actually a really good segue into something that I wanted to talk about, which is something I call journey maps. I'm sure there's like so many different names for these out there, but it's something that I started doing for my clients in the last year or so because I just saw time after time how important it was. And this is what you were saying, where you had mentioned, I don't want my client just to come in and we work together and they kind of never hear from me again. Or a new lead comes in and like maybe they get the lead magnet that you created and then maybe a newsletter and you're like, I don't know what else to send them. And what I see down the line is what'll happen is an entrepreneur is like, okay, great, I have this thing that I'm launching in the fall. And let's just say they're very on top of it. So they're like, I actually am going to start my emails in summer, which would be fantastic. That is a great plan. And they at least have that in place. But instead, what I try to show my clients is, what if we already had that built to begin with, so they were being nurtured along the way? So when that launch came, all you really had to do was plug in the launch pieces versus building that runway before or piecemealing it along the way. And so I would say any type of mapping you can do. So for me, this is something I do in Miro, and I go in and I build out a whole contact journey map from the moment a contact enters your ecosystem all the way through until we're trying to get them to whatever goal, and then some even post goal. And so that can look like a year's worth of what is this contact hearing from you in emails? Why are they hearing? What's the overarching message and reason we're doing? And then again, getting into that segmentation based on behaviors and based on what they're doing, where should we send them next? So versus just being like, I don't know, I'm gonna send them a whole bunch of emails and I'm gonna ask them to buy, or I'm just gonna tell them about me and we see what happens. Really mapping out like, okay, this purpose of this section is we're warming them up to the brand or to the person, we're having them get to know you. Based on their behavior here, maybe they need more of that warming up. So we're going to keep sending them down this path. Or maybe we can already see interest on their clicks and their opens and all of these things. So let's go ahead and send them to more of an engaged sales series. Building that map out lets you see the overarching picture, even if you're not going to build it right now. So it might be, looking at it, it's like, okay, that would take 6 months to build this all out and get everything connected. That can feel super overwhelming. And it's like, that's okay. Just start with all of those first pieces that a contact should be getting in the first month or so, and build as you can as you go. So I would say that's something that I absolutely love helping clients with. So if that's something that you're interested in or you want to hear more about or see, please reach out to me. I love showing these maps to people and they get really excited. But I would say, yes, but map it out first.
Natasha, the system that you just mentioned that you map everything out in, did you say Miro?
Miro, M-I-R-O, I believe.
Okay, I've not ever heard about that. So we are going to have to chat about that offline. I've not heard of that before. And you mentioned something that I wanted to jump in on when you were talking about the clicks, looking at the click rate and the open rate. I'm also a very big numbers person, and I think we talked about it in some of the previous sessions. But once you build your email list and you start sending out emails, there's more to it. You still have to see what's working and what isn't. You need to take a look at your analytics and review them consistently to find out where the interests are in the emails that you're sending, and check out the behaviors from the emails that you've sent and things of that nature. So there is, even though we're talking about using an email list to build your business, there are more layers to that. You have to be consistent in sending the emails. You have to take a look at what's happening once you send the emails, and you really, really need to have a good strategy, since you are using these emails to develop the like trust relationship. You want to do things that are working and not use your email list audience experimentally. So I just wanted to quickly throw those in as well.
Yeah, I think there's a few good points you brought up there. I should have been taking notes on that. You were saying a lot of good stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. One is going back to the metrics, like you said, so keeping track of those and doing some A/B testing. So remembering that it's not just, well, is this getting opened or not open? And it's well, you can test things like the subject line. Is that helping? Is the time you're sending it helping? Is segmenting the audience a certain way and sending out different subject lines or different times helping? So there's all these different testing you can be doing along the way. In general, I recommend kind of going back to our basic science of you only want to have one variable that you're testing so you can really see whether or not that's making a difference. But over time, you can test lots of different things, and that's really important. And then the other thing I would say in terms of, I want to go back to mapping for a second. And the reason that's so important is, I don't know if we've brought this up yet in our conversation. It might have at some point, but it used to be, at least when I started 5-6 years ago, in the kind of marketing rule of thumb was, I think it was something like 7 touch points for a contact to make a decision to, either buy or maybe even book a call, whatever it was about 7 touch points. Whereas that's recently been changed to about 21 touch points, and which is wild to me. And that isn't, say, 21 emails. That's something like a text or a social media post and emails. It's all working in conjunction together. But that does mean that, again, when we talk about sending emails, and I know it can feel so uncomfortable when we're first getting started, but that is going to look like more than just a newsletter. And that's not consistently being here's 3 to 4 emails a week, but that is saying, again, the right message, right time, right person. There is going to be a right all of those things. That does mean multiple emails in 1 week to get to the point that you're trying to make. And so again, when we're mapping, that's part of what we're looking at. We're saying, okay, as they get closer to this part, we're going to have to send them more emails and get more information in front of them. But that means, you know what, we should probably turn off the newsletter during this time because we know we're sending emails, but we want to be cognizant of not overwhelming them and getting to the right point.
Sorry, I'm slow to find my mute button once I'm into what you're saying. I really love what you just mentioned about not overwhelming your audience. We shouldn't be afraid of unsubscribes. We've talked about that. If they're not your people, you don't really want them in your list, pulling down your open rates anyway. We've talked about that. But I am the quickest to unsubscribe from an email if they send too many emails in one amount of time, and or those emails are not relevant to the behavior that I have in relation to the company. So I love that we've mentioned that a few times, but I love that you're leaving that in like our last segment, not overwhelming your audience. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's like perfect what you said, where you're quick to unsubscribe if you're getting too many, or it doesn't feel right based on your behavior. And I think that's the part we don't connect with enough, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm in email marketing. Of course I'm unsubscribing from all kinds of things. And I'm like, no, I don't want to hear this anymore. Why is this in my inbox? However, there's also things that I get I can tell when someone's in a launch of something, or, you know, they're pushing whatever it might be. And I'm getting multiple emails a day about something, but I'm not unsubscribing because I am interested in what they say overall. And I can just tell they're in the middle of a launch, or I might even be interested in buying it. So I'm thinking about it, and kind of like, to me, I'm like, oh, great. I know I'll get an email about it to remind me. So I don't even have to think about this right now because they're going to email me again. And that's worked. And I have bought off of that. So we need to be cognizant of not overwhelming, but we also need to not be afraid of putting the messaging out there as many times as actually necessary. Because again, you're looking at 21 touch points overall for this contact to make a decision.
I am also the same way. If I really, and again, I'm a relationship person, really developing relationships. If I feel that the email is really relevant to me, or if it's something that I enjoy seeing, or it might be something I want to purchase down the line, or an event that, you know, is on the bucket list, I will hold on to those emails. But it's because I really feel like a relationship has developed between myself and the company. And I know we talked about this before. I also hold on to beautiful emails. I do. And they're just really pretty. I'm like, oh my gosh, they really put a lot of effort into that. I will hold on to them because I've been there. I've been there trying to design the emails. But
I love it. That's just like our business side kicking in. We're like, I just want to support the work that they did for this email.
Absolutely. Yes.
I wanted to touch on too, you were talking a bit about metrics. And so I'd say that's kind of the other thing I would get into is keeping track of it, like you said, because it's, as the saying goes, what gets measured gets grown, or something like that. But essentially, like, we can't grow and we can't see growth if we're not measuring it. Like, how do we know, and how do we fix things, or how do we see things that are working and expand on them? So keeping some type of metric tracking is really important. And then B, consistently cleaning out your list. And this is another one that I think is really fearful for people, because you've put in all this work. You've built this lead magnet. You're getting in front of people. You're asking people to join. You're sending out all these emails. Like, you've put in so much work and time. And then to say, like, okay, great, now you just need to get rid of these people if they're not opening, feels heart-wrenching. And I do understand that, but they're just hurting you. They're just dragging you down. It's like, you know, on a plant, when you have to kind of like clean them up a bit, it's the same thing. And at the end of the day, like you said, don't be afraid of those unsubscribes from their end, but also don't be afraid from your end. And what a list cleanup looks like can vary a bit, because it is going to depend on how often you're sending out communication. So if you're only sending a once a month newsletter, then you're probably going to want to give a contact like a good 6+ months before you're unsubscribing, because they've only had 6 chances to interact with you. Versus when I come in, I'm working with my clients and we build out these really intricate things where emails are going consistently on top of their emails, all of that. I'm going to make that window a lot shorter for an unsubscribe, closer to like 3 months, because they've had so many chances to interact and they're not interacting for a reason. So making sure that you're doing that, giving them one last chance. Always reach out and just like, hey, you know, I've opened those emails. I've seen them come through. They're like, oh, do you want to be unsubscribed? I'm like, no, I just haven't been opening lately, but I do want to stay on the list. So give them that opportunity. But if they still don't open those, remove them. It's going to help your metrics. And there's some vanity to that of like, of course, your opens are going to look better. These things are going to look better. But it also means that you now have a more cold list of people that actually want to be there, so that when you're making choices about content and what's getting open and what you should be doing, you're basing it on a group of people that actually want to be there versus still looking at the whole group and making decisions on a whole group of people that aren't even interested.
Yes. So when I was younger, my mom always told me, don't stay where you're not wanted. Um,
Mm,
and you don't want people on your list that don't want to be there. If they don't, or if they aren't showing any interest in the content that you're working so hard to put together, you don't want them taking up space on your list. Clean them out, get rid of them, and make room for people that are truly interested in what you're sending out, that you can develop a relationship with and nurture a relationship with.
yes. I love that. I know we only have a few minutes, so I just want to give like a quick, I think, summary synopsis because I feel like we've said so much, which is, again, when you're getting to this growth stage, so this is going beyond newsletters, beyond the basics, and you're trying to see that ROI for your emails and what you're putting in, the keys are really going to be, one, continuing to effectively grow your list of ideal clients who actually want to be there. So not just growing for the sake of growth, and then moving into your content and consistent in how much you're sending. And so again, that's going to get into like mapping, figuring out what are emails that make sense. I don't know if we touched on it, but I know, Andrea, you mentioned before the idea of like, there's simple things too that just make sense, like an abandoned cart email, something like that, where it's like, well, that automatically makes sense in like a purchasing order. But then there's also things about just like nurture over time and sales emails and all of those. Getting those more intricate, detailed pieces in are where you're going to see the real change and growth from emails. So getting those automations set up in your CRM, getting some type of tech set up that allows you to do those automations, because the automations of where the money is, where the time is, where the relationships are, that is, everything's in those automations. And then moving into metric tracking. So measuring everything, watching it, making adjustments, and then also keeping your list clean. So if you kind of follow that path, that is where you're going to see some real extensive growth in your emails.
So Natasha, tell us where we can find you to glean more of your wisdom on systems and email strategies.
Yes, no, I love it. So on LinkedIn and Facebook, you can find me at Natasha Yankoff. Very rare name, so I'm usually the only one. And on TikTok and Instagram, you can find me at Saksomu. That's my name as well. And I post on all of those. I'd say TikTok and LinkedIn the most. And also, I'm always down for a coffee chat, so I can put that link down here in the comments after. If you just want to grab it, say hi, or if you have a project you actually want to talk about. Either way, I'm just always happy to talk about emails and automation.
Do you have anything special coming up that you want to mention before we have our end our last chat?
You make me feel like I should. I was like, oh, I was like, I have a party. Does everyone want to come to it? No. I don't think I actually have anything scheduled at the moment. I probably should have, but I would say that if you're looking for some additional resources, I'll also put the link down here to my free things on my website. And so there's something about specific list growth workshop, as well as a subject line guide and some other really useful information. So I'd say just definitely connecting there and getting those free resources.
Yay. Thank you so much, Natasha.
Yeah, thank you.
This has
Oh,
been
go ahead.
really fun. This has been really fun. I've learned a lot. I've received some validation and some things that I've been doing on and with my email list for a while. And I've made notes of some things that I want to change with my current email list. So I really, really appreciate you agreeing to do this with me. It's been so much fun. And I hope that we've been able to provide so many nuggets of wisdom for everyone that has joined us. And I always forget to mention it, but if you have any questions or any comments or anything that you'd want to discuss with us, drop it in the chats and we look through the chats afterward and we'll be sure to get back with you on that. But it's so much fun. And as Natasha mentioned earlier, if you want to book a coffee chat with me, have a conversation with a business visionary, I will leave my coffee chat link in the comments. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day, whether it's been live or a replay, to join Natasha and I. We really, really appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.